I know you could just begin by telling us, I know, something about your book, something about yourself.
I'm happy to. I was born in Britain, and I started my career as a literary journalist in Britain. I studied literature at university, and instead of staying on to do academic research, I decided to go into literary journalism, freelance literary journalism, in London. And it was possible then, in those days, this was in the late 1980s, to make a living as a freelance critic. So I'm fortunate to be writing, I now write for the New Yorker magazine, I'm fortunate to be able to write long book reviews in an age when the book review probably is thought by many people to be irrelevant or a fading or a declining genre. It's a funny thing about newspapers that certainly in America and Britain, that they will pay for someone to be, they'll pay to have a permanent theatre critic and a permanent music critic and a permanent art critic, but they usually, the New York Times is an exception, they usually don't pay to have a permanent book critic. The kind of long review or long essay that you would get in the criticism section of the Frankfurt Allgemeine Zeitung or something like that is very hard to find in newspapers anymore. In America, it's been pushed, that kind of criticism has been pushed more into the academic realm. So you might find it in the New York Review of Books or the Times Literary Supplement in London, but not in a mass market newspaper. So I admire that about German literary culture and always have done, like that kind of seriousness.
What do you think about social media, Facebook, Twitter? Is it something you might be interested in?
The internet sees itself as the place where more radical work can go on. That's to say, if you want to know where the avant-garde is in fiction right at the moment. I mean, 100 years ago, if you'd arrived in a city and you'd said, okay, I want to know where the avant-garde is, someone would have said, go to that cafe, go to that cafe, go to that studio. Now, I think, if you arrived in a country and someone said, okay, I want to know where the difficult writing is, where people are not caring about how many books they sell or how difficult they are, you'd say, turn on the computer and I'll show you the Underground Literary Alliance or the Elegant Variation or whatever. So the blog thing is interesting to me, and increasingly, obviously, journalism and criticism will be done there.
As a teacher, how has been your experience? How do you enjoy being a teacher?
Yeah.
Could you just, I don't know, say something about it?
Yeah, I do. I enjoy being a teacher very much. I come to it fairly late, so I only started about 5 or 6 years ago. I don't have a PhD, so I'm not a formal scholar in that sense, and I teach only half-time. But I like it because the rhythm is slower. You know, when you're reviewing a book for publication, even if you're dealing with an author like Tolstoy or something, you only have a limited amount of time. And so it's always a struggle against the deadline. You know, you think to yourself, okay, do I have time to, let's say you're reviewing a new translation of Anna Karenina or something like that, yeah? And obviously you read that, but then you think, okay, do I have time to look at War and Peace again? And you say, no, I don't. Or do I even have time to read Anna Karenina over again, you know, just as slowly? So it's always this struggle that you're up against a deadline. With teaching, it's the opposite. It's all about slow reading. I would say if you want to be a critic, or indeed, perhaps even more so, a creator of an art form, I think you have to care about it more than anything else, and care about it perhaps even to the exclusion of other things. It has to be the thing. I think you can tell when you read a critic who is passionate about the form and who doesn't care that much about the form. If you're passionate about the form, then I think you really believe that it's the only thing that matters, and therefore its fate and its destiny is really important to you, and how much more so if you're actually writing novels or writing poems. So that would be my advice. I will just read a passage from How Fiction Works in English. This is a passage about character. The unpracticed novelist keeps to the static because it is much easier to describe than the mobile. It is getting these people out of the aspic of arrest and mobilized in a scene that is hard. When I encounter a prolonged ekphrasis like the parody above, I worry, suspecting that the novelist is clinging to a handrail and is afraid to push out. In Antonioni's film L'Eclisse, the luminous Monica Vitti visits the Rome Stock Exchange, where her fiancé, played by Alain Delon, works. Delon points out a man who has just lost 50 million lira. Intrigued, she follows the man. He orders a drink at a bar, barely touches it, then goes to a cafe where he orders an acqua minerale, which he again barely touches. He is writing something on a piece of paper and leaves it on the table. We imagine that it must be a set of furious, melancholy figures. Vitti approaches the table and sees that it is a drawing of a flower. Who would not love this little scene? It is so delicate, so tender, so sidelong, and so lightly humorous. And the joke is on us.